Regal Kaleidoscope, live on WADL Channel 38. I have here with me today two guests. I have Sam Carter from Michigan Department of Corrections, and I have Sonia, last name? Dixon. And Sonia has a husband who's in prison. What we're talking about today is navigating the penal system as a prison wife. So Sonia's going to tell us some of her situations, some of her struggles, some good stuff and some bad stuff. And what we have Mr. Carter here for is to help us as lay people understand how to effectively navigate this system. Sonia, before the break, we were talking about you had some smart problems, some dressing problems. Are you visiting your husband? How long has he been locked up?
5 years. Little over 5 years. And we've been off visits for over 2 years.
So you haven't physically seen your husband in 2 years. Why is that?
They took his visits. And it seems to every time that he puts in for his visits, he get a ticket.
Okay, do you think that this is a ticket that is earned? Is it a minor ticket or a major ticket?
It's a minor ticket.
And do you know the difference between the classes of tickets for misconduct?
No, that I don't know.
Okay, what we do have in the penal system, we have major tickets and minor tickets. I believe class 1, 2, and 3 tickets. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Could you explain to Sonia a little more and to our listening audience the difference between the classes of tickets?
Well, the class 1 is usually what could be construed a felony in the community. The class 2 likewise, but it's usually going to include some type of social unrest or administrative rule violations.
Can you give us an example of a 1 and 2?
For example, in a class 1, if you assault someone and do great bodily harm, it is great bodily harm.
Okay.
That's a felony. Class 2, if you are having an argument that looks like a fight is ensuing, it could be construed inciting a riot. All right?
Okay.
But you're not going to see that in court unless it's real serious.
And are most fights considered inciting a riot?
No.
Okay.
No,
and what's
they're
your
not.
class 3?
Class 3 is usually what we call a minor ticket, which is usually a rule violation that deals with maybe possession of something or being out of place. Well, really an out-of-place ticket is a major misconduct. But if it's something minor like your radio was too loud or something like that.
And you can receive a ticket and be withheld a visit because of your wife because your radio was too loud?
I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of anyone losing a visit over anything less than a class 1 or 2. So that's something new for me. I'd have to check that out, and I really wish I had known about that so I could be absolutely honest about it. To lose a visit is very serious with the Michigan Department of Corrections. The question is, what was the charge?
Well, let's see. Sonia, do you know what the charges were? Because 2 years is a long time when we're looking for family reunification and we want to stay connected with the community. How did that happen?
Well, originally, he got 1 ticket. I left. I wasn't on my drive in Jackson. I wasn't on a drive, but about 15 minutes, he said, "You're not going to believe this. I got a ticket." I said, "For what?" He like, "I still got on my street clothes." They said he passed a cigarette to a guy that was smoking. The guy that was smoking said, "He didn't pass me a cigarette. I don't know them. I'm smoking." They charged all 3 of them with the smoking ticket. That's one example.
So wait, let's start with that one example. So in the department, you can grieve a ticket. Did he, in fact, grieve that ticket?
He did. He grieved several tickets.
But let's stick to this ticket, and we're going to move through the system because what I want to happen from this show is people who are struggling, who do have loved ones in the system, I want them to understand how it works and to how they can educate the inmate that doesn't know. So when he grieved the ticket, what happened after that?
He sent it out. You know what I'm saying? It cost us like $500 to send out a couple of tickets. He didn't grieve one.
How did it cost $500? So you have to pay to grieve a ticket?
If he has to hire an attorney, that's his attorney, but normally it doesn't leave the facility. Usually when you grieve a ticket, it's grieved in-house.
Okay.
You know, and the question is, what do we not know? Because there are always details that the folk outside don't know about what goes inside.
And I agree with that, but what we have to do here, because today we want to be educational, let's just take it at face value.
Let's take it at face value.
So when he grieved the ticket, he originally sent that to.
He went out. He went outside of the. He goes inside. You don't get any action inside. He went outside as well. He went outside with more than one ticket.
But when you say that,
Mm-hmm.
I believe the procedure is when you first get the ticket, within 2 days, you have to talk to the officer. After you verbally talk to the officer, which again, I think is ridiculous because if an officer has targeted me and he's giving me tickets, I don't necessarily believe that he's going to be that amenable to conversation. However, the procedure is you talk to the officer, and after 5 days, you have to write a written grievance, I do believe, to the hearing investigator, or you write the written grievance and then the hearing investigator picks that up. And then the inmate has to go to a hearing, although his presence at the hearing is not mandatory. And then he gets a decision back. And if he does not like that decision, then he appeals. So are you saying that he didn't follow that process?
He followed the rules and he appealed the tickets. Maybe that's what I'm saying wrong. He appealed and he sent them out. When you appeal, that's when he has to pay. So he sent out that ticket along with another ticket when they shook down his room, or however
Hold
they
on.
say it.
We're getting the procedure because I want to make sure he's. I just want to make sure he's doing this correctly, because if what could be happening, he may be doing it incorrectly.
Okay.
When you say he sent it out, you retained a lawyer.
No, he appealed it. So whatever he did, I'm not sure.
Got
We
it.
needed him on the phone. And I had the legal papers at home, but I didn't know to bring them or we were even going to go.
No, all is well. All is
Okay.
well. I'm just trying to make sure that we all remain very educated about the procedure. Okay. She keeps talking about paying $500. Do you believe that was to legal counsel, or does the appellate process cost?
If you have to get your own attorney, yes, it will cost. Otherwise, you have to ask for assistance as an indigent individual. The question is, will you get it, and how long it will take? Normally, when a ticket is served, if I may talk about procedure, the individual is told he has a ticket. That ticket is read to him. That's a service. And then it's going to have a hearing date set. And then we have an investigator who will talk to both parties, see what's going on, see what the ticket is supposed to be saying, and then we'll have a hearing before a hearings officer. That hearings officer is usually a RUM, unless they're in a facility where we have a separate hearing officer.
Okay.
And then they're going to listen to the evidence and make a decision. Now, if you don't like the decision made, if you don't like it, you then have to appeal.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, the hearing, and I believe you and I talked a little about this earlier, something that I find to lack due process in the system is that the inmate doesn't have to be at the hearing. His presence is not required. So how can I advocate for myself zealously if I'm not even allowed to come to the hearing? Oftentimes these inmates are not learned. Therefore, they have to write down exactly what happened and why they should beat the ticket. But if I'm not even in the room when the hearing is taking place to defend myself or to tell my point of view, I can see how a lot of tickets are being denied because it's a very one-sided process. You have the officer who wrote the ticket, you have the hearing officer who's also an employee of MDOC, and you don't have myself there who received the ticket. So how do we reconcile that process if I can't even be there to effectively advocate for myself?
It's not that you can't be there, it's that you don't have to be there.
If I really want to be there, what do I do?
You'll be there. Normally, they're going to give you the hearing date. You'll know when it's going to be held, and you will get a pass to come out of your housing unit or off of your assignment or out of school, and you'll be at that hearing. What that means is if, for example, that individual went to an outside hospital or was in the hole or something, detention as we call it, that hearing is going to go on. That ticket's going to be heard. You don't have to be there for that.
Okay.
That's what it means. It's not that you're not going to be allowed to be there. That is not your due process.
If I'm in detention or if I'm in the hole and I can't make it there because I'm in detention or I'm in the hole, again, I still feel like it's, and I know these aren't your rules, Officer Carter, I do feel like it's a situation that mocks due process. Here we have a hearing, but I'm not present. It still mocks due process.
The sad thing about it is you can still be there. They can still sign you out of the hole to go to that hearing. So what happened is a question mark to me as to how this man was not at a hearing. Where was he? And why was he
He's
there?
not at the hearing.
You know, I don't know that. And the sad thing about institutional misconduct, his family is not privy to that information either.
And I thank you. It's time to go to break, but what I would like to say before break, what I want you to take from this segment is call the sergeant. If something happens and you're in prison and you're not getting what you want, you can go over the officer's head for resolution. Thank you, and we'll see you shortly. Have your constitutional rights been violated by illegal search or seizure of your motor vehicle or home? Did you know that every parent has a fundamental right of parenting, which includes visitation? Call me to get the rights you deserve. I'm attorney TataNisha Reed. Innocent until proven guilty is your right, not just the same. My team of legal professionals will work aggressively to advocate your criminal and family matters and get your life back on track.
For a greater chance to succeed in your time of need, call attorney TataNisha Reed.
Welcome back, and thank you for watching and listening to Legal Kaleidoscope. Hi, how are you? This is Attorney Reed.
This Ray Reed. How you doing?
I am well. How are you? This is Sonia's husband. This is our guest husband. He's calling from prison. Do you have any questions for myself or for Sam Carter here, the prison officer? We had a conversation about you not having visits for 2 years. Do you believe you were, in fact, 3 years? I thought it was 3 when she said 2. Do you believe you were discriminated against from the prison officers is why they keep taking your visits? Tell us what's going on.
Absolutely. For those, the listeners and viewers, it's still like a racial divide in here as well as it is with officers and males of color that's in society. It's the same thing in here. You know, they discriminate against us in the same manner, whereas it is our upbringing and their upbringing is totally different. We're in a rural area where they never even cross-pollinated with our culture. So everything that we do, they scrutinize it, and then they make it as if we've been offensive because they don't understand it. So they just here getting a paycheck, and they using their own personal views on how they judge us. You see what I'm saying? So if I'm walking around and I'm just staying to myself, they think you're being a tough guy or anything of
no, I hear you. I definitely hear you.
Work out every day.
Do you think that was it one? Hold on, Ray. Was it one individual officer who picked on you and took your visits for these 3 years? How did that happen? We're trying to figure out when you're an assistant that encourages family and community, and you don't see your wife for 3 years. How did that happen?
Well, I was it's a big Bay area where it's no privacy. So everywhere you at, it's a lot of guys. So if you in a room or a day room where we watch TV at, play pool or cook up at, you got guys in there doing all kind of things. So if an officer come in and be like, you come here, you come here. I seen you smoking because you can't smoke cigarettes in here anymore, although it was allowed. Then that's 1 strike. 2 strikes, you're out. 2 strikes, you are out for 2 years.
Well, let me ask you this.
2 strikes of that, you're out.
And I'm going to ask Sam Carter this as well, but I made this statement earlier, and I tell my daughter this all the time. If you know Caesar is an unjust king, and Caesar will cut your head off, why do you break Caesar's law?
Right.
You can't break Caesar's law because you serve an unjust king. I do agree it's a racial divide. I do agree with everything you're saying, but I think what we have to understand as African Americans and inmates, regardless of your race, you're in a penal system, in my opinion, that has huge egos. You have individuals who not Sam Carter, of course, but they have no power in their individual lives, and that badge represents and symbolizes who they've always wanted to be. So now that they have someone under them who they can boss around and push to and fro, they will, in fact, do that. And because you know you're dealing with these people, you have to adjust your behavior and respond accordingly. Sam Carter, is it true what Ray just said? After two major tickets, you can't get any visits for 2 years?
That's news to me, and I need to look into it, and I'll be glad to call you back with that information.
Okay, we can potentially even do a part 2 because we have so much that we haven't even gotten to, and it's 4:51 already. So you're saying you got 2 major tickets, and because of those 2 major tickets, they took your visits, because we may need to go to Attorney Mack for that.
excuse me, it was 2 major substance abuse tickets. I had allegedly been smoking a cigarette that they never had, never seen, nothing. It's just an officer word against mine. And allegedly, I had an old pack of cigarette wrapper that was only used for institutional use only, that was there before I got there. Police officer, correction officer, unhooked the locker off the wall and found it and said, I put it there.
And he had
And
absolutely no proof that you put it there, did he?
No, absolutely none.
And let me tell the listeners this. Hold on, Ray.
This particular item had been sold. Excuse me?
I agree with you, but what the audience has to understand, in the penal system, it's not the same standard. It's not a beyond a reasonable doubt to find someone guilty. It's preponderance of evidence. The threshold is so low so that if an officer says something, his word is higher than your word, although it should not be in all circumstances. What about witnesses? I was reading that you get to call witnesses. Did they allow you an opportunity at your hearing to call witnesses to bring documentation and exhibits?
Yes, that's only other inmates. If you got other officers rarely go against one another.
Right.
Even though in that situation, one officer said that he highly doubt that I put it there because they had just fixed every locker, every wall locker. Every wall locker had been fixed to not come off. So he highly doubted that I put that there. However, the hearing officer, 99.99% of the time, you're automatically guilty. Period.
So
it doesn't even matter.
Why didn't you take this to district court? Did you not know you could take this to district court at that time?
I did. I took it to district court. They charged me $150 for each misconduct that I caught, which was a total of $300, and they just rubber stamped it and pushed it back up out of there and said the findings is upheld.
Did you have a lawyer in district
evidence
court? Did you have a lawyer?
No, I did not. This is a issue that I had took through the steps in the MDOC through the grievance process, then judicial review, which they read them in Lansing, and the three judges out in Lansing, they always rubber stamp it. They don't even go and look at the evidence. They just go with the preponderance of evidence, like you just spoke on earlier. So you're 99% guilty, even in district court.
No, I agree because. Listen, though, it's 2 things. Attorney Mack just said that in terms of all of the officers, it's not a non-biased, non-neutral process. However, as an attorney, I do believe whenever you're in court, you need an attorney. It can be a civil matter because I've seen people lose in civil matters because you don't necessarily know how to articulate and advocate for yourself legally. You don't know how to get evidence in. You don't know how to get exhibits in. When we look into the eye of the law, we all can see a different perspective. I'm going to piggyback on some of the things that Brian had to say. I do agree that we should have conjugal visits. Now, the question becomes, is Michigan a conjugal state? Officer?
Last I knew, it was not, but it may have changed.
Okay, and Sonia, in your research, do you believe Michigan is a conjugal state?
I believe it is. I thought what I heard last was they just didn't have the funding for it.
Okay. And the only reason that do you believe in conjugal visits? Before I give my opinion, do you think conjugal visits are necessary?
I think it would help.
And Sonia, do you believe in conjugal visits?
Absolutely.
And why?
Because it would help. It would help. They have them in different states. In New York, for one.
What would it help?
It would help. It would have tension in the prisons for the prisoners. Yes, it could bring. Yes, it would. It would bring it down. You know what I mean?
All right.
I mean, I'm a little bit better because I'm out here doing my day-to-day things. But with them, they're in there. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of them have wives that they would, that I would love to be able to, have a conjugal visit with my husband. Definitely.
I agree with that, but my issue is the high percentage of prison rapes, the high percentage of violence, the high percentage of deaths. And not only does it relieve the tension, you have some men that are called lifers, and those are men who are there for life. And it's no stigma in prison. Outside the prison walls, there's a stigma of homosexuality. Inside the prison walls is kind of a don't tell. Would you agree or disagree?
I disagree.
Is still a stigma there?
Yes.
Oh, see, I heard
very
it wasn't.
profitable one.
Okay, go ahead. When you say very profitable, what do you mean?
Some people get paid for those services. I don't think it's a good idea that you leave them in that catch-22 thing, but being able to have conjugal visits does raise a number of issues. if the person is not your spouse or legally your wife or whatever, are you saying they can hire somebody to come in and do them a favor?
Well, you can't break the law. So, no, you can't. Solicitation is a crime on the outside. So solicitation would be also a crime on the inside. I'm just saying if it's a spouse or a girlfriend, I'm not here to be their moral compass. I'm simply here to decrease prison violence, to decrease prison rape.
I agree that conjugal visits would be a good thing for families.
Okay, and is that because of the word of God? Or is that because, why is that?
Because if you are a couple, if you are a man and a wife, you need to be together.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not, that's another issue altogether, is what I was trying to say.
But whose value system is that? Are we talking about decreasing prison violence, or are we talking about your ability to interpret the word of God? I do agree that couples should come together and the union and the married bed is undefiled, but also I'm not trying to be the moral compass for an individual who's in prison being raped because the other individual is a lifer and he has nothing to lose. So you can't release tension through sexual intercourse with a person who is your girlfriend. So is that your value system you're placing on it, or is there a reason in terms of the penal interest?
The penal interest is that we keep folk calm as possible and safe.
Okay.
If we're talking about families that need to stay together, then I'm all for it.
Okay.
But the rest of it, I believe, has a lot of questions that have not been resolved with a lot of folk. And it boils down to what you just said. You can't break the law. So are you telling somebody to get married just so they can have a conjugal visit?
No, I'm saying that conjugal visits, in my opinion, should be upheld as long as it's a person of an opposite sex and as long as it's a girlfriend or a person that you have decided you want to have sex with. It can't break the law. So I don't agree with solicitation because it will break the law. But if it's any situation where it's a girlfriend or a person that this individual has decided to have sex with, I think it could be a wonderful help because, again, we're decreasing crime. Let's go to the caller. Hi, thank you for calling. This is Attorney Reed.
Yes, I'm calling to address some of the topics you've raised today. I too am an attorney, and I practice representing inmates. Michigan, you can vote in the state of Michigan. Your voting rights can be restored to you. Some states, if you're convicted, you cannot. Michigan is not one of those states.
So do you have to fill out an application or a petition for your voting rights to be restored, or are they automatically restored when you are released?
No, what it is that you are not prohibited from going down and registering to vote like anybody else. So if you haven't registered or you don't have a proper ID, just like with anybody else, the ID's got to be presented. But there is no prohibition in the state of Michigan from a person coming out to the Michigan Department of Elections and voting. That's not true.
Okay. And did you have another question? Because I have a question for you. What's your name, sir?
Hugo Mack is my name.
Okay. Did you have another question?
Well, yes. Concerning the issue of the RUMs reviewing the tickets, what I think your audience needs to understand, those RUMs, that stands for like resident unit manager, okay?
Okay.
And a lot of those RUMs have matriculated up through the officer's rank. So a RUM has got a basic rank of equivalent perhaps to a captain, let's say. Mm-hmm. And so what you need to understand is, what I want the audience to understand is, that is not an independent review. Because a lot of times these RUMs, these officers that are bringing these tickets, these are the same officers that are fellow workers with the RUM. And in my aiding and assistance of tickets, 95% of them are upheld and 95% of grievances are denied. Okay?
Counselor.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I 100% agree with you, and that was my exact point when I was saying you're supposed to talk to the officer who, in fact, wrote the ticket. You have no neutral party here.
Absolutely. Absolutely not, you know. And so the sadness of it is that they used to have hearing officers that were attorneys that went to different facilities that had at least a facade of a neutral and detached magistrate, okay? But perhaps offline we can talk sometime. There was an African-American hearings officer, this must have been maybe 15, 20 years ago, that was fired because he was finding too many people not guilty. okay, on those tickets.
So counselor, what is your advice? Because I don't do prison law, and that's why I'm having this show, because I get so many calls. So I want, before you leave, I want you to give the callers your name and your number. And also, I would like for you to give the listeners your advice.
So, Sam, I heard your grandma say they're donating that car to Charity Motors. Yeah. Said they're getting a full fair market tax deduction for it?
I do not know what that means.
It means we get whatever it's worth as a tax deduction, right when we donate it.
Nope, not getting it.
It means we get money for it. So does the charity we pick. And the car goes half off to someone who really needs it.
Dollar bills, Sam. Whoop, whoop. Charity Motors.
Yep.
We're back, and I thank you again for calling, Ray. And some of the things that Ray said, I kind of echo with Mr. Mack and Mr. Carter. I think that Mr. Carter would agree that we don't necessarily have a system that is perfect. I think that we still need to utilize the steps within our judicial system to make and affect change. What would be your advice to anybody who has a loved one in the penal system who is being harassed or mistreated or getting tickets that they don't believe are fair? What would your advice be, Mr. Carter?
Well, more important than to the family, it's to the prisoner. You have to know your rights.
Okay.
And when it comes to harassment or racial discrimination, these are federal offenses. Mm-hmm. And you need to get your friends, your other prisoners to agree with you, and you just need to file class action suits. Now, I ain't gonna lie to you, and I did say ain't. People do try to retaliate in ways that are not legal, but you have to fight. Nothing's free in this world.
Say that one more time.
Nothing's free.
He said you have to fight. I think it's so much easier said than done when you're on the outside. If I fight in there, it could mean I don't see my wife for 3 years. If I fight in there, it could mean I'm being bent over another man's private parts. If I fight in there, it could mean I don't eat. So once you fight, what else you have to do? From TataNisha Reed, plead the blood of Jesus. Pray. Pray, because God is, the Bible says he is I am. And he can be everything you need him to be at that point of need. So when you fight a war in the spirit as you fight in the flesh. Feel free to watch me on WADL channel 38 every Saturday at 11 o'clock. Also, like me on Facebook, Legal Kaleidoscope. And if you have a topic you'd like to hear, inbox me your topic. If you want to come on the show and be a guest, inbox me your name and telephone number, and I'll get back with you. And if you need a will, I have a will special, $300 for will, advance directive, and doable power of attorney. I'd like to meet you. I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to hear from you. See you soon.